From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Just after 2 years of receiving this $500 million loan guarantee, and 6 months after DOE restructured the terms of the deal, Solyndra has closed its door, laid off over 1,000 employees, and filed for bankruptcy. Last week, the FBI agents raided the facility.
Newly disclosed emails show the Obama administration rushed a $500 million loan to a solar panel company despite warnings from the Office of Management and Budget. The company collapsed just 2 weeks ago. We'll speak to the Washington Post reporter who broke the story. Then thousands are rallying around the world to stop the execution of Georgia death row prisoner Troy Davis.
Regardless of whether you're for the death penalty or you oppose it, this is a case to lift up your voice and just simply say, not this time, not this time. This is too extraordinary. It's too disturbing. There's too much doubt. Don't kill Troy.
We'll speak with NAACP President Ben Jealous. Then, on the 40th anniversary of the Attica uprising, newly uncovered audio recordings reveal President Richard Nixon enthusiastically supported the violent crackdown on prisoners when he spoke with then New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller.
I only called because I wanted to alert you that we were going in, and when we went in, we couldn't tell whether all 39 hostages would be killed and maybe 200 or 300 prisoners.
We'll speak with historian Teresa Lynch, who obtained the tapes. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Violence is escalating in Libya, where forces with the rebels' National Transitional Council have launched new assaults on the remaining strongholds of Muammar Gaddafi. At least 11 rebel fighters have been killed so far in a three-front rebel attack on Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. The Obama administration says it's dropped plans for major cuts to Social Security as part of a debt reduction plan to be presented to Congress next week. On Thursday, the White House said President Obama will no longer propose raising the Medicare eligibility age from 65 to 67, as well as cutting Social Security benefits. Obama had agreed to the changes as part of a failed effort to reach a deal with Republicans earlier this summer. The White House, however, is still moving ahead with a call to trim at least $340 billion from Medicare and Medicaid. Obama's also preparing to propose some $800 billion in tax hikes, a red line for Republicans. In a speech Thursday, House Speaker John Boehner said tax increases should be off the table.
Now, tax increases, I think, are off the table, and I don't think they're a viable option for the Joint Committee. It's a very simple equation. Tax increases destroy jobs, and the Joint Committee is a jobs committee. Its mission is to reduce the deficit as threatening job creation in our country. And we should not make its task harder by asking it to do things that will make the environment for job creation in America even worse. And I hope the President will meet this standard when he puts forth his recommendations for the Joint Committee next week.
The Republican-controlled House, meanwhile, has passed a measure to limit the authority of the National Labor Relations Board. On Thursday, Republicans voted to prevent the NLRB from ordering an employer to halt production or relocate workers if labor rights were found to have been violated. The measure came in response to the NLRB's ruling earlier this year against Boeing for retaliating against striking workers. The NLRB found Boeing illegally shifted production of its new 787 Dreamliner passenger plane to a non-union plant in South Carolina to punish striking union workers in Washington state. The measure now goes to the Democratic-controlled Senate, where it's unlikely to pass. The Supreme Court has halted the execution of an African-American prisoner over evidence that a key prosecution witness expressed racial bias. Duane Buck was set to be put to death Thursday night for a 1995 double murder. Although Buck's guilt is not in dispute, defense attorneys have challenged his death sentence over the testimony of a state psychologist during the trial. The psychologist, Walter Quijano, told jurors that sparing his life could be dangerous because African-American criminals are more likely to pose a future danger to the public. The Supreme Court has agreed to take up one of two appeals filed by Buck's attorneys over Quijano's testimony. The Obama administration says it's hopeful Iran will soon release 2 jailed hikers, despite conflicting statements from the Iranian judiciary and Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. The judiciary caused confusion this week after denying Ahmadinejad's announcement that the hikers would be freed. Shane Bauer and Josh Fatal have been in prison for more than 2 years after being arrested while hiking near the Iraq-Iran border. On Thursday, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said the U.S. has received assurances the pair will be released.
It's very difficult for us to try to speculate as to the differences and battles that are going on in the political leadership within Iran. And to really understand just exactly what the nature of that is. Our goal here is to try to get these hikers released, and we've been assured that, that steps will be taken to make that happen.
One of the 2 hikers, Shane Bauer, is a freelance reporter, and he has reported for Democracy Now! You can go to our website at democracynow.org to see his report. U.S. officials are claiming a top al-Qaeda operative has been killed in a new CIA drone strike in Pakistan. Abu Hafs al-Shariri was allegedly responsible for a number of attacks within Pakistan's borders. The Pakistani government, meanwhile, has criticized the Obama administration for blaming a Pakistan-based group for this week's deadly attack targeting the U.S. Embassy and NATO headquarters in the Afghan capital of Kabul. A spokesperson for the Pakistani Foreign Office said the criticism threatens U.S.-Pakistani cooperation.
These remarks seem to be out of line with the type of cooperation and the extent of cooperation that exists between the 2 sides on counterterrorism. Pakistan condemns terrorism and terrorist incidents anywhere in the world. Terrorism and militancy is a complex issue. It requires close cooperation amongst all concerned. Pakistan and the U.S. have cooperated in countering terrorism.
In other news from Pakistan, Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani has cancelled a trip to address the UN General Assembly amidst massive flooding. Nearly 300 people have been killed and some 400,000 have been displaced due to heavy rains in the southern province. The devastation comes 1 year after Pakistan suffered its worst ever flooding. The Palestinian Authority continues to reject last-ditch U.S. efforts to thwart their bid for statehood recognition at the United Nations next week. On Thursday, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said Palestinians are open to hearing U.S. pleas, but they are likely too late.
We will see if any of them is carrying with him or her any credible offer that will allow us to look into it seriously, and then, of course, to be discussed among the Palestinian leadership. Otherwise, the 23rd, at 12:30, the President will submit the application.
The Palestinian Authority is expected to officially submit the statehood request to the United Nations Security Council next Friday. On Thursday, hundreds of Palestinian solidarity activists marched in New York ahead of the bid.
We're really here to send them a strong message. Next week there's supposed to be a bid for Palestinian statehood, and our message really is that this is only one part of the Palestinian struggle and the Palestinian rights that we need to achieve. Ending the occupation is an important part, but having rights of the Palestinian people in the form of the right of return and equality of Palestinians living inside Israel are also important and must be achieved if we want true peace with justice.
As the Palestinian statehood standoff intensifies, Israeli settlers are increasing attacks on Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Sarit Mikhaeli of the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem said a wide range of Palestinian property has been targeted in recent weeks.
We have noticed a sharp increase in the number of attacks by settlers against Palestinian property and acts of vandalism. We've seen an attempt to torch a mosque. We've seen a lot of racist graffiti and several cars that have been burnt, as well as attacks against agricultural crops, olive trees and grapes. To the best of our knowledge, the police haven't arrested any suspects for these acts.
The United Nations has sent an investigative panel to Haiti to probe the apparent sexual assault of an 18-year-old Haitian man by Uruguayan UN troops with the International Peacekeeping Force. The incident has sparked protests and renewed calls for the force's departure from Haiti. Speaking in Port-au-Prince, United Nations Assistant Secretary General Anthony Banbury condemned the assault.
This incident is clearly unacceptable. What happened is wrong. But we don't yet know all the facts, and before we reach any final conclusion, we have to wait for the investigation to be completed.
Denmark has elected its first-ever female prime minister, unseating the right-wing political movement that's held office for 10 years. Initial results show a coalition led by Social Democrat Helle Thorning-Schmidt has won the election with a slim majority in the Danish parliament. The U.S. Postal Service has unveiled a plan to eliminate up to 35,000 jobs as part of an ongoing effort to avoid collapse. The $3 billion cost-cutting move would also see the closure of more than 250 mail processing sites and the downsizing of the Postal Service's transportation network nationwide. Hundreds of people are expected in New York Saturday for a protest dubbed Occupy Wall Street. Organizers say they intend to take over Wall Street and stage popular assemblies. Organizer Justin Weddis said the protest is being called to help spark a mass movement against corporate dominance.
And so, more than having any specific demand per se, I think the purpose of September 17th for many of us who are helping to organize it and people who are coming out is to begin a conversation as citizens, as people affected by this financial system in collapse, as to how we're going to fix it, as to what we're going to do in order to make it work for us again.
And a grieving mother in San Antonio, Texas, has filed a lawsuit over the fatal police shooting of her unarmed teenage son. 14-year-old Derek Lopez was shot to death after hiding from an officer who'd witnessed him fight with another teenager. The officer, Daniel Alvarado, had previously been reprimanded 16 times, suspended without pay 5 times, and recommended for termination over earlier incidents. Lopez's mother, Denise Lopez Moreno, is seeking punitive damages for civil rights violations, supervisory liability, and negligence. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.